changes. That seems like everything that we are going through right now in this mad insurance world, guys. This is the time that we are living in. This is a hard market. It is a difficult market. And that is why the Insurance and Beyond podcast is here to serve you and your needs for you and your agency. We are Insurance and Beyond podcast. My name is Devin. I'm here with my good friends Chuck and Mike, our co-hosts, and we're going to launch into it. So today we are actually going to be discussing compensation. So, the last couple of weeks we talked about niche markets, we talked about referrals versus advocates, we talked about how to build your revenue inside your agency. But, with each one of these things that's going on, it's important, especially if you're looking to hire producers, we're looking to bring on new agents, we're looking to bring on a service person, you're looking to bring on a sales and service person. What type of compensation plans are there? Guys, there's a number of ways to skin a cat. What works for one agent doesn't necessarily work for another. This is actually going to be a two-part series. So you're going to want to listen to this one first before you actually listen to the second one. And we'll actually have instructions on that. So before we get into this, let's talk a little shop. Chuck, Mike, guys, how was your days today?
Hectic and crazy as always. I mean, it's in this insurance world, that just seems how it is. It's been like that for a couple of years now. And honestly, I joke with my staff at times. I say, I don't know whether we're in an insurance agency or we're fire, because it seems like all we do is put out fires. It just seems like there's always an issue right now. So, and if you're listening to this, I'm sure you agree with that and you're going through it yourself.
I mean, it's one of those things, guys, to where we're always busy, right? And people ask me and say, well, how was your day? Busy, but the question is, busy doing what? Right? Is it busy making money? Is it busy retaining money? Is it busy doing things that's not going to do either one of those?
It's a busy losing money because you're not being productive.
That's right.
Yeah, I'd have to 100% say. So there's a lot of efforts out there. Everyone is busy. Everyone's got things going on. The question is it getting you closer to your hopes, dreams, and desires of why you purchased this agency or started this agency from the beginning? And that's really the key as we're having a conversation today.
Right. And, as we're going in, we're building out this compensation. I've been in the insurance world since 2001. I've had my agency since 2010. And guys, I can tell you, I've made every single mistake in the book when it comes to compensation plans. When I was coming out of the ACB program, and we talked about, the program that I was in with Nationwide, one of our earlier episodes. So go back and check that one out. But, when we're going in and we were talking about it, one of the things that we had to do is we had to go in and kind of put our business plan together, right? They wanted to see what the business plan was before we actually graduated and came off of our program and opened our own offices, right? So I put together this business plan, I put together this compensation plan, and I presented it to my sales manager. And my sales manager was at that time, more of kind of like a yes man, right? Mm-hmm. He was a yes man because regardless of what I put together, I could have put together just a pile of steaming poop. And he would have been like, oh man, this is great, right? He didn't really provide the advice. And the problem is, guys, is a lot of these guys, they hadn't done that before. They hadn't done it before. So therefore, they could not provide the proper advice necessary. I wish to God that I had gone in and maybe consulted some other agency owners or had podcasts really at that time, someplace that I could consult with. I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone for me to be able to consult with. So I'll give you an idea of what my plan looked like, and I'll tell you how stupid it was. I was paying them a base of $42,000 a year, right?
Wow.
$42,000, right? And then I was paying 60% new, and I was paying up to 40% renewals. Now, the renewals that I had it on a graduated scale over a course of 5 years. Now, as the renewals increased, the base salary decreased, which was supposed to equal to zero after a 5-year time frame.
That was my question. Did the base ever decrease as well?
The base did decrease, right? But, it went from 20 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, and 35 to 40, right? And once it hit 40%, the base salary decreased and it would have gone away. What I found out is the base salary of 42,000 at 60% on new business was way out of like if I wasn't getting the bonuses and stuff like that from Nationwide and I was just starting off as an agency trying to do it on my own, that was completely nuts, right? Absolutely nuts. Not even in the ballpark of being somewhat reasonable. So what we're going to do is, guys, is we're going to go in, we're going to talk about reasonable compensation plans. What did those look like? How do those look? Because the most important aspect for you as an agency owner, we all went here for one reason and one reason only, which is to make money, right? As a business owner, you don't want to be, a slave to your staff, right? You don't want to be in a position to where your staff is making more money than you as the business owner. I had a franchise agency a long time ago that was within our agency. I call it franchise. They kind of had their own deal using, but they were kind of branded underneath us, that type of thing. And we had consulted on business models, compensation plans. She did not listen to my compensation plan. And I was telling Chuck earlier today that on her compensation plan, the lady could have built a $2 million book as a producer. And as the business owner, she's still overpaying her by $25,000. In fact, she was in the hole by $25,000 at building a $2 million book for her. Like the producer selling $2 million in premium, she's losing $25,000. I told her, I said, there's no reason for her to even be there. She's building this book of business within there, but she's the one that's making all the money. You're not making anything.
No, so and carrying all the headache.
So it's important to go in, and we're going to dive into this. I'm going to let Chuck kind of go in. One of the cool things that, Chuck is a very humble guy. He's not going to, he might not look humble on the screen, but he is a very humble guy. And that's something to say because he is a Florida Gator, and most Florida Gators are not humble people, but Chuck is a very humble guy. He's not going to be here to toot his own horn. Right. And it's funny because, I'm wearing my Georgia shirt. Chuck's over here. He's wearing his Florida Gator shirt. And Mike's wearing something.
Nothing. Just
a t-shirt.
Well, he's got clothes on.
I got clothes on, but I just
for those of you listening to the podcast, not watching, he does have clothes on.
Yes, I do.
The good news is he's wearing a shirt.
He's wearing a shirt.
That's right.
Huckleberry's from West Virginia. That's hard.
I mean, I'm just happy someone from Florida can spell humble. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, Chuck didn't say it. I said it. So,
Well, that's true.
Yeah. But anyway, what Chuck won't tell you is in his career, he spent a long time at Allstate. He went up the ranks. He was one of the top guys there. He's one of the smartest men that I've had the pleasure to know. I appreciate his friendship. He's got a lot of knowledge, and I learned, in our discussions, I learned from Chuck every single day. And one of the things, the reason that he is here, and he and I and Mike agreed to do this podcast because, there is a lot of information that we've been able to retain over the years, and we wanted to help other agents, newer agents, current agents, and even long-term agents that maybe you're just you feel stuck. Maybe you just feel like, there's things that you can do better. It's not too late to go in and change your plan. It's not too late to go in and change things within your agency. You can do it. And, one of the great things that Chuck's going to go and bring to the table is really, some of the talking points that, when he would go in and do the large seminars and large conventions that Allstate did, he was one of the speakers that would get up there and talk about revenue. He was one of the speakers that would come up there and talk about compensation. So I'm going to let him lead off on compensation models, and then we're going to kind of chime in and take it from there. So Chuck, take it away, sir.
Yeah, so thank you both. This actually is a conversation that's just near and dear to my heart because when you're on the other side, it was not actually a bad side because one of the things folks didn't realize is you don't get paid if agencies fail. You only get paid for agency success. And that's what I tried to ingrain into all of my leaders throughout my career. But that being said, one of the misnomers is the answer to every question from leadership used to always be the same thing. And I kind of was the one guy who went against it. And what is that? So the answer to, Hey, my production's low. What was the answer? Well, add more staff. Hey, I need more quotes. Well, what was the answer? Well, add more staff. Well, hey, I'm having a problem. It did not matter what the issue was. The answer was always the same for leadership, and that kind of grinded me in a bad way. So it's great to talk about compensation, but the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are you currently paying for and why? And before you get started, so that piece is more critical than the compensation structure than the other way around, because a true compensation structure pays for tasks to be completed in an agency. It does not pay for people. People is a byproduct because those are the ones you need for that task to be completed, but it's literally the task that you have to be completed. And what we ended up doing is we said, before you hire anyone else, are you effective with your current staff? And if the question is don't know or no, then adding more staff is just going to magnify the current problem you already have. So what we did was we said, all right, here's what we need to do. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. What are you paying for? And what do you think you're paying for? So how do you figure that one out? It's real simple. Ask your staff, hey, what do you think your roles and responsibilities are each and every day? So when you walk in the morning, what's the first thing you want to do? And then when you leave, what must be completed before you leave and go home? And then you write that down, and then you ask them to write it down. And inevitably, when you both get together, it's going to be a different answer. So part 2 of that is, where are your true pain points? If you don't know those, don't hire anyone. Until you know those, you've got to get into your agency and figure it out. Oh, we need to do more quotes. Well, why can't you do more quotes now? Well, it could be something as simple as you may have everyone in this generalist approach, which is kind of more of a slant towards specialization, but it's not. And so they're all called hybrids. So what does that mean? What that basically means is something simple. Hey, my sales folks, they've got great charisma. They're wonderful. People love them and they're killing it. Okay, great. But here's the problem. If I'm a salesperson with great charisma, what ultimately ends up happening is customers want to talk to me every day, all day. The problem is, if I'm a true sales folk, what I want to do is sell something, close something, and move on to sell something else. So you've got to figure out what's the most important thing for them not to do, not what they are to do. Because we're all type A as nature and they're really good salespeople, they must be type A. So what you're going to need to do is spend more time on what don't you want your sales folks to do? And I'm going to simplify it by saying this. Conceptually, you want them to be hunters or you want them to be nurturers. A hunter goes out, shoots, kills, leaves it there. The nurturer comes back, picks it up, takes it to the village, cleans it, cooks it, and prepares meals for the village. So break it out in those two things, because the more time I'm spending talking to, selling to, and closing, the better off I am. And what that also does is it helps you with your compensation structure, because it's got 2 areas. So compensation is built on 2 basic fundamental principles. Fundamental principle number 1, commission. Commission means that the compensation structure is going to manage your folks. Salary means that you are going to manage your folks. And somewhere in between the 2 is the hybrid of how you really need to approach your compensation structure as you move forward. What's the perfect one? It doesn't matter, because that's literally something you're going to figure out with your agency. But the reality of it is, if I pay someone $40,000, $60,000, $20,000 a year, regardless of what they do, the behavior is going to follow such. If I pay them strictly on commissions and all I'm going to get paid for is what I kill, the behavior is going to follow such. So if you're okay with managing your folks and you want them on salary and you want to make sure they made 15 calls a day, you want to make sure they had 8 contacts, you want to make sure they had all these different things, then you can push them more towards salary.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have time to do that because you don't have the capacity, then you're going to have to push them more towards commission. Why? Because if you don't do something, you don't get paid for that thing.
Yep.
So fundamentally, as you kind of move through this, that's kind of how you have to think about this compensation structure. But you cannot do that until after you figure out what are those critical tasks that are going to drive revenue in your agency each and every day.
Right.
And guys, let me jump in here real quick.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Mike.
Devin, but
No, go ahead.
Chuck's got a great point there. There's 3 models here. There's commission, there's salary, there's hybrid. And Devin, we started at the top of the podcast with you were trying to phase out a salary, which I think is a great approach, and I think it's probably an approach most of us have used and probably will continue to use. So help. But let me caution everyone with this: when you're interviewing a salesperson, and let's talk specifically sales, when you're interviewing a salesperson and they ask you what the base is, that is not who you hire.
That is correct.
When they ask you what the commission is and what the ceiling is, that's the person you want in your office.
That's right.
When they ask you what the base salary is, they are not a true salesman.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do the bare minimum. So to accommodate the various ways of commission and base and all that, have someone ask about the commission. That's the one you hire. Now, incentivize them with a base for a couple years, scale it out, whatever, make sure they can live. But if they ask for the salary, they're not the right person for that job.
That's right. One of the things that comes to mind when we're talking about this, and everybody's heard it. Everybody on here, I guarantee, has heard it, but very few people actually follow it. I am a guilty party of this. Okay. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yes.
So many times we go in and we hire folks into our agency. And, the fact is when we have to go in and you're firing fast, a lot of times we as business owners and agency owners feel like we are admitting defeat, that
Right.
we made a mistake and made a bad hire. Guys, it's okay. It's okay that you made a bad hire. And it's very important to not keep them in your office for too long. And the reason is because a lot of people will think, oh, you know what, I can turn them around. They're a good person, blah, 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 blah. You're not going to be able to.
Uh-uh.
Don't waste valuable money, time, effort, and energy on a person that you're going to eventually have to come to that decision, in the future. It's funny. It's taken me a long time to learn that lesson. It has. My business partner has gotten on to me several occasions to where I've brought in somebody and I've held on to them too long. Chuck and Mike can attest to that.
Oh yeah, I've been there myself. Everybody has.
Well, they've had the conversations as well with my business partner on that, on some individuals that I brought in. Right?
It was called offering you advice for his perspective.
That's right.
That was it. No big deal.
So, but guys, the reality is it doesn't matter how long that we've been here. We all, I'm the type of person that where I try to see the good in everybody. I do. As some people would say, it's part of my attributes. It's also one of my flaws. Right.
Okay.
And I say it's probably one of my biggest flaws. And, other people say, well, Devin's too nice of a guy and I don't hold people's feet to the fire as much as I should. And that's probably true. Again, I try to see the positive in everything. I'm a positive individual. I was talking to one of my good friends and we were having a conversation. He was like, man, he says, you're the type of, dude, you're always positive. You're the type of person where there could be a little drop of water in the bottom of a glass and you're like, this thing's half full. Yeah. I'm like, but the reality is I am a positive person, but one of the things I've had to learn, I've been really forced to learn, and I appreciate what has occurred in my life, because one of the things that me and my business partner kind of bring to the table, and it's very important, guys, is when you're going in, you're looking to have a business partner. Number one, you have to have 100% complete trust in each other, right? If there is any shadow of a doubt of non-trust at all, don't do it, right? You have to have, and we'll probably go into partnerships and stuff like that, acquisitions, whole 9 yards on a whole nother episode, because there's a lot that we can get into on that. I've done over 16 acquisitions, so I know a little bit about that space. But it's important when you're in business with somebody to make sure that you know them, you trust them completely on every aspect, and that you can go in and you can take each other's advice, right? It's important to do that. Some of the other things that I was thinking about as Chuck was talking was terminal velocity. Now, I've used that term a lot with my agents. And terminal velocity, if you know what that really means, is when someone is or something is falling from the sky, it hits a maximum velocity before it hits the ground. It's not going to continue getting faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. It's going to get faster and faster and faster up to a certain point. It reaches terminal velocity.
Okay.
And after that, it's not going to go any faster. But, when it hits hard. And I refer to terminal velocity in our sales force for our sales agents. Okay. So when you go in and you hire a sales agent, at some point in time, they reach terminal velocity. They reach a point in their sales life to where the amount of business that they have sold, because guys, face it, in the insurance world, there's another nasty term outside of cancellations and chargebacks. It's called attrition. And you have a natural attrition within your agency. So if you have an 80% retention rate or you're running a 90% retention rate, at some point in time, you're going to hit a plateau that you cannot break through. Now, a lot of times, if you are a one-man band, if you are your insurance agency, you are the sales and service, you take care of everything, you are going to reach your terminal velocity. There is only so much that you can sell. And once you hit that point, you're going to be overwhelmed by the amount of service stuff. Now, if you are hiring a sales guy and that sales guy, you say, oh, you know what, he's great at sales and they're going to do both sales and service. Guys, after about 2 or 3 years of hard selling, over 50% of his time is going to be spent on service. And after a while, the vast majority of his time or her time is going to be spent on service and not sales. So one of the important things is making sure that you are separating out your staff for sales and service. Now, you can have hybrid sales and service people, right?
Oh.
But I call them service and sales, right? They're the guys that capture the deals on the back end of the business that are not allowing the business to leave the office. Okay.
And those are our inside people.
Those
Those
are
are the
your
people in the office that the customers deal with daily. They're the ones where someone calls in to make a payment. They're having a conversation, they're servicing, but then they're also going, hey, while we're at it, we don't have your home.
Right.
Yeah, I will go a step further.
Ancillary.
Yeah, I'll go a step further. Everyone in your agency is a salesperson. It's how they approach the sale.
Right.
So at some point and at some time, even your service folks should do this one fundamental thing that we all hate to hear, but it's called cross-sell. If everyone in your agency is bringing revenue, whether it be directly or indirectly, you are on the right trajectory. And as Devin was saying earlier, which I think we'll have another section on hiring and how to hire, the problem we have is we see ourselves in a lot of people we hire, but everyone that we see ourselves in is called a project. It's not called a good hire. So by meaning that, that's what it really is. It's a project. Why?
I'm going to hit the bottle after this, guys. I'll tell you what.
I think what's happening is we're all having these PTSD flashbacks of all the people we went through for that very reason all of a sudden.
100%. Because, my God, you look like I was when I was in the spot that you're in, and I'm going to take you out of the position you're in, and I'm going to make you a better person. But that's because you see yourself. So there are platforms out there that will take all the subjectivity out of it, because your best salespeople are the easiest sold. And everyone wears an interview, or everyone wears a suit to an interview. So they're going to give you their best game. Why? Because they practice it from all the interviews they did not win, and they recraft their story. And for those men out there, it's kind of like, was the first girl you ever asked the one that you dated, or was it one after that? And for the women out there, same exact thing. Was the first guy who said, hey, who are you, the first one you said yes to, or was it someone after that? So everyone has a way to practice. The question you got to figure out is, did they have a lot of practice before they got to your agency? And the way to do that is do an objective viewpoint of who they are. And I will tell you, with some of these tools, folks have tried to say the tools are inaccurate, but there are some psychological traits that folks have that will say, yes, this person is a salesperson. Nope, this person is not. But they all should be to a certain extent, because you've got to be able to say, I notice you don't have this, so we're going to put you over here in this play. And they both can exist in your agency as long as you're paying them according.
And guys, we're talking compensation, but not to change the subject here, Devin. You said we'll get into this, and we will, on hiring. Keep in mind to what Chuck just said. When someone comes in, they're wearing a suit, you're getting their highlight reel, okay?
Right.
You're getting what's on social media. That's all you're getting. You're getting the best. You're not seeing everything else. Interviewing today is way different than it was 10 and 20 years ago. It's very, very different.
Correct.
And the second point I want to make on that is in regards to compensation. So many business owners, as you grow, especially, your largest line item on your P&Ls, on your expenses, are your employees.
Mm-hmm.
They become the largest line item of what you spend your money on. It's very easy to naturally look at that as a liability. Your employees are not a liability. They're an asset.
Correct.
If you treat them like a liability, then you're never going to grow.
That's
when
correct.
you treat them like an asset,
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with an asset? You watch the asset. You manage the asset. Look at your 401k. Look at your bank account. What do? You're always making sure it's taken care of. Why? It's your asset.
Correct.
So when you hire someone, when you come up with the right comp plan, when you look at the strategy to make them successful, you got to look at them as an asset.
Well, the key to that asset piece, simply put, is your biggest asset is always your biggest producer with the least amount of problems.
Yes.
When you bring someone on who is subpar, naturally a human being checks off the boxes and say, how do they relate to me? So the best way to get rid of your top producers is keeping an underperformer on your books, which is why
That's
they
correct.
say fire fast.
Yeah,
Why?
so let's
Because
go back to Devin. Fire
called
fast.
favoritism. Yeah, it's called favoritism. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm busting my butt. I'm doing A, W, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they're getting paid the same amount, but they're keeping them around. One of two things are going to happen. I'm going to ratchet down my drive for growing your agency, or I'm going to leave because I'm like going, oh crap, well, you just really like that other person, so I'm out.
And guys, that is something to where someone is on the more salary versus commission compensation model, because everybody's doing, on the sales side, everyone is doing the same thing for the same amount of money. And, there's a lot of agencies that I've talked to over the years to where they don't pay their staff any renewals. And if you don't pay any renewals, that's fine. I've got a really good friend of mine that he doesn't pay any of his staff any renewals. And that's perfectly fine. If whatever works for you inside your agency, if you can be successful at it and it works within your organization and where you live, that's perfectly fine, right? We're not trying to get you to change your compensation structures. We're just trying to go in and say, hey, look, there's some avenues out there to where maybe you can, A, earn some additional revenue in this world that we're in, B, be in a position to where you can actually maybe change some things to where maybe you can make a little bit more money, and at the same time, your producer can make a little bit more money. But, one of the things I do want to bring up as we're talking about this is when we're looking at the sales and service side, sales versus service, a lot of times, guys, your sales guys are not organized. I know that's a shocker. I know I know for you guys out there, it's like, oh my gosh, that is a revelation, right? There's no way that sales guys are not organized, but you're really good sales guys, they are not organized whatsoever. And, for my sales staff, dude, right now, like trying to get them to get notes in the system is like pulling freaking teeth. Right? It is extremely difficult, and it has taken me a long time to get them to the point to where they are now, to where, when they go in and have a phone call or whatever else like that, they'll go in and put a note inside of our management system. And then at the same time, your guys that are service staff, right, are not always going to be good sales folks. Now, I do have one young lady that works in my office. She actually used to be my operations manager from about 2013 to about 2018 or so, 5 years, she was my operations manager. And eventually, I mean, she was selling so much as a inside salesperson. She was selling $35,000 to $40,000 a month in new business. And I'm like, Misty, we need to go in and put you into outside sales. And so she's been with me, since 2013. And, I put her in, she's in outside sales and she has flourished. And it's great because not only does she do everything right on the service side, right, taking care, and she actually does a lot of her own servicing. It's kind of crazy because that's just kind of what she did and that's kind of what she prefers to do. But I mean, she sells anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000 a month in new business. I mean, we talked about referral partners versus advocates in our first podcast. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that one. But she effectively turned a referral partner into an advocate, and from there has turned his referral partnership as an advocate, has lenders and tons of other people, tons of other investors and things like that all send her business. I mean, when I go in and I looked at, myself, right? When I was first starting the agency, I would tell people, I'm like, I kind of looked at my agency as kind of like an octopus, right? And people look at me like, what the hell? But if you look at an octopus and you see the head, right? You have the head of the octopus, that's your central spot, and then you have the 8 tentacles going in all different directions. At the end of those 8 tentacles is a referral partner. And if you can have each one of those referral partners sending you 4 leads a month, that are closed. And if you're looking at your referral partners, you're closing about anywhere between 80 to 90% of those. And if you're looking at a home and auto side, you're looking at 2 products, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, you're looking at a minimum of 40 policies just coming from there. And if your average policy is $2,000 a policy, which is small in this day and age, that's that's $80,000 in premium per month for one agent. And so, that's really kind of where your focus really should be, and really making sure that your outside sales guys make sure that they have those referral partnerships. I have a buddy of mine that goes in, he spends a lot of money in leads, and it's okay to buy leads, right? It's okay to have that lead generation, right? But you need to have the focus of also building out those referral partnerships so you're not dependent on those leads, because otherwise you're subservient to those leads 100% of the time. That's always going to be part of what you do. I would much rather have all the leads coming from referral partners to where I'm not having to pay for that. I am happy to say that we have been 100% referral since 2013. I have not bought a single lead since 2013. And people ask me what my marketing budget is. It's $180 a month. It's what I spend. We're a $35 plus million agency. I spend $180 a month on marketing. That's it.
So, Devin, you brought up a very good point. And a lot of times agents get caught up in this world of they didn't do all the T-docs right. They're causing me a nightmare, even though they can close, and they get rid of those folks. So I kind of started this whole conversation off with, it's not as important of what your salespeople do. It's more important of what they do not do. And in your scenario is, if you know someone has horrible skills with follow-up or horrible T-doc skills or any of those type of things, that's where your service person comes in to clean up the mess. So we said, but yeah, Chuck, that sounds great, but here's my issue. They've got such great charisma. People want to talk to them. Do you know how to get rid of a person who wants to talk to a salesperson with the greatest charisma ever? Title. So your service people become the sales and service supervisor. And my responsibility is to make sure that everything is done correctly. And just so you know, Devin, everything that Mike does and says still needs to be approved by me before you. Now, you're more than welcome to talk to Mike, but I just want to let you know that he runs those things by me. Well, what ultimately happens there is it's a quick spin, because now I don't ever have to talk to Mike again, regardless of how great his charisma is, because I would rather talk to his supervisor. It doesn't matter anything. It is just an emotional play to drag those tasks away from your salesperson so they can go, talk to, close, and then go to the next person and not have to worry about all that other stuff. Here's the beauty of this, and then I'll close out and switch it over to the other guys. The beauty of this is now your service person manages the salesperson, not you as the agency owner. Why? Because you're going to bonus those folks based on how well the salespeople they support do. And then at the end of the month, what ends up happening? Your sales and service folks are going to join together to do what? Sell more stuff, because if they hit these tier, which we can talk about that later, but the whole principle of it is if I clean up their mess, do all their and get everything through efficiently, and my salesperson can keep pushing stuff through the funnel, then me ultimately on the back end is making it as efficient as it possibly be. We can both make money. And what you end up doing is you bonus them on overall production of the folks that they're working with on that service component. So if your guys are sitting there running, I need to do 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100,000 in premium a month, your service folks can actually be your best ally, because what ends up happening is if you comp them based on the success of the folks they're supporting, guess what happens when the next bonus tier is at 100 grand and they're at 98? You've just added another salesperson to the staff that is pushing that guy, cleaning things up, and you're not hearing the arguments. But let's say they're really, really sloppy. It doesn't get to you. It's,
Right.
hey man, you're making my life miserable. I'm trying to help you make money by closing these deals. And as you know, until this policy issues, I can't get this done. So help me help you becomes the mantra, and it keeps you running your agency, not managing your staff.
It's almost like a mortgage person and their processors. But I will
Exactly.
say there's one thing, Mike. I'll go back to you real quick. There's one point I want to make on this is there's actually a third advantage to this, and that third advantage on this is the fact that your salesperson that is going in and selling $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month in new business, or $20,000 or however much they're selling, right? By you going in and separating out your sales and service, your service person is the one that maintains the relationship with that client.
100%.
So when that salesperson, at some point in time, more than likely, that salesperson is going to potentially go bye-bye, right? And the worst thing that could happen to an agency is when that salesperson goes bye-bye, they go in and they try to go after their book of business that you've paid for, right? Because you've compensated them a base, you've compensated them for the commissions, you've compensated for them for the renewals. So you've paid them for that business, right? And then they turn around and now they want to go after it. Well, if you are going in and you are creating this process to where you're separating out your sales and service, you retain that business within your agency because your service person is the one that has the relationship with those clients.
And one of the things that ends up happening too is if your salesperson is able to keep selling more and more, you can put them strictly on 100% commission in a short period of time. And it's affordable. Why? Because they're not spending their time doing things that do not generate revenue for their agency. So it does work in concert with each other, but just wanted to kind of get those things out there, because the biggest thing here is conceptually understanding why you're doing what you're doing, why you're paying for what you're paying for, and then how do you know that it's being successful and going in the right direction as you continue moving forward.
Absolutely. And guys, I hope that you heed the advice that Chuck, Mike, and myself are providing here, because this is a culmination of years of experience of really doing the wrong things, learning from our mistakes. Take our advice as we're going through and building out how this compensation works. In our next podcast, we're going to go over different compensation models, some different ways that, and the reality is, guys, is depending on where you are is really going to depend on the market, right? My office is in Winder, Georgia. Come say hi. Office is in Metro Atlanta, but it's not in Atlanta, right? Those insurance agencies that are based in Atlanta, they're going to have a different compensation model because the cost of living is going to be higher. Anytime you have someone that's living in a major metropolitan area, and you have a business there, your compensation is going to be different. The compensation in California is going to be different. If I go in, when I talked about a $42,000 base salary, and I'm talking to one of my friends that has an agency in California, he's scoffing because he's paying his service person $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And, for us, I'm like, I can't really fathom that, on the service side because, but, on my end, I can go in and have 2 or 3 service people for what he's paying his one service person. And so they just have to be more efficient. So, all compensation models are not created equal, but we're going to get into that in our next podcast. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank you guys for supporting our podcast. And, our goal here, guys, is for you to listen, learn, and earn your way to success. Have a great evening.